Hi, this is Nicole McCaskill, Community Learning Coordinator for Equipped. Thank you for participating in the upcoming recorded content. This content was originally presented and recorded on February 23, 2022, during a facilitated live webinar. At the end of the session, you will click a link to complete an evaluation. The evaluation allows you to receive a DCD-EE training certificate. You will be asked to agree to an online learning honor code during the evaluation process. Our presenters include Brooke Daniels, Quality Enhancement and Peer Mentoring Coordinator, and Tyler Ricks, Graduate Research Assistant at UNC Greensboro. It should take about 1 hour and 30 minutes to complete this session. This includes viewing the recorded content and finishing the session evaluation. Total DCD-EE credit for participation is 1.5 hours.
Okay, so tonight we hope to have some really good conversations with you guys. And by the end of our time together, we hope that we're able to hit some of these key points. We want to explore emotional resilience with you all and its role in combating teacher burnout. We hope to be able to identify and discuss self-care strategies to support early childhood educators, you guys, in enhancing your personal well-being with the ultimate goal of improving your teaching practices and experiences and outcomes for young children. And then finally, to explore techniques to practice and apply being fully present in your child care settings, right? Those are the things that we hope to accomplish by the end of our time together this evening. Okay, so let's start off by talking a little bit about why emotional resilience is even important to us as early childhood educators. So early childhood educators who are emotionally and mentally well are better equipped to do a couple of different things: to be responsive to the children that we're working with, right? To be present with them and to be available to them, and to provide what they need from them. To develop positive teacher-child relationships, right? So you're more likely to be involved in the process of building that relationship with that child, connecting with them individually. Where they're better able to support children's confidence and engagement in learning as well, which is why we do what we do. And poor well-being of early childhood educators can threaten the quality of the practice, and identifying strategies to support and sustain well-being is crucial. Early childhood educators with high levels of depression and stress, emotional exhaustion, or burnout are less likely to be engaged in high quality interactions. So it's not only the work that we're doing with the children, we want to make sure that those interactions and what we're doing with the children is of high quality, right? It's one thing to just be in a setting and to provide that basic level of care for children, but it's another thing to truly be intentional about providing those high quality experiences for children and interactions for children. High levels of work-related stress are also associated with the reduction in professional commitment, right? And higher rates of turnover. So those teachers who are more stressed, right, are less likely to stay employed at their programs. And we know that continuity of care is super important when we're working with young children. We want the same teachers in those programs with the children day after day in order to produce high quality experiences for children and ultimately produce higher outcomes for them. And when it comes to quality practice, educators matter. So if we want high quality practice, early childhood practice, we first have to start with the educators. And many times we don't do that enough, right? We want to make sure that we are pouring into the early childhood educators so that they can then in turn pour into the children and provide what they need in order to be the best that they can be. Improving the quality of early childhood programs.
Call from Jerry Talks.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Call from Jerry Talks.
I'm sorry.
No problem. I just want to make sure everybody can hear me. All right, so improving the quality of early childhood programs and learning outcomes for children demands a highly skilled educator, one who is capable of making sound decisions and engaging in reflective, responsive practices and instruction. I want to make sure we keep that in mind. And we're going to move on to talk a little bit about resilience from this perspective of looking at this conceptual framework. So as a part of, I'll give you a little background information. As a part of my work with the Ascend Peer Mentoring Program, every year we choose a specific topic to focus on, and we are intentional about selecting resources that support that topic. And so this year we decided to do some work around resilience for early educators, and we found a couple of awesome resources that I'll share at the very end. But one of those resources, the name of the resource is Onward, Cultivating Emotional Resilience for Educators by Elena Aguilar. She talks about this conceptual framework of resiliency that includes these different pieces. So she starts with the who we are, and that's what we bring to the table, our genetics, values, and personality.
I know what you're trying to make it go up.
Who we are, which is thinking about us within context, what we do, our habits, and then how we are, our emotions and dispositions. And we'll talk more about each of those as we continue on throughout tonight.
What's to do?
Get my slides to go. Okay. I wanted to bring up this whole concept of self-awareness versus and self-compassion. All right. So thinking about self-awareness as coming to the table with who you are, being knowledgeable about who you are. And cultivating resilience starts with the ability to be self-aware. So you first have to know, what it is that you need, what areas could use some growth or some development. And that's important to the entire process. With this deep knowledge, an individual is better able to navigate challenges and focus on their strengths and resources and use their assets to practice resilience. Self-compassion focuses more on, studies show that self-compassion buffers stress and increases resilience and self-worth. And individuals who are unable to have compassion for others are less likely to have compassion for themselves first. So it's important to make sure that you have both of these components in order to cultivate resilience and to be involved in that process.
So with this, we talk about 3 conversations that we must have. And so when we're thinking about these 3 conversations, we're thinking of it as organizational conditions, you have systemic conditions, and then you have your individual resilience. And so individual resilience is what we have the most control over and the most influence. So what we think, how we engage with our emotions, and the actions we take every day, that cultivates our resilience. Organizational conditions are, so you can't just focus on individual resilience, but you have to look at organizational conditions as well. So if the conditions and the context in which teachers work are not optimal, it is not enough to tell teachers, you hear this a lot, you need to sleep more, you need to check your attitude, you need to be grateful. So conditions in many organizations don't foster well-being. So this is the adult culture. And so you have to think about the strength of the leadership and just your basic operational routines and systems that you have in place so that you're able to cultivate well-being with educators. And so the systemic conditions, those are those macro, political, economic context of our education system. So we know teachers must be paid more. They must be treated as people who can think and who can learn. We also have to address racism. We have to address classism and sexism that exists in our institution. And so with all this systemic and structural, what can I say, systemic and structural things that are going on, we have to acknowledge that and see how that is relating to high levels of teacher turnover. And so the idea behind this is if we can boost your individual resilience, then you can have more energy to address organizational conditions and systemic conditions. So our hope today is that we'll boost that for you all so you can advocate for yourself. And so it is time to thrive. So we're going to have an activity. And so activity is called energy check-in. And so with this activity, you're going to gauge how your energy is right now at this moment. And what dimension needs your attention the most. So under each dimension, you have body, emotions, mind, and spirit. You have different things, different points. So think about those different points and how some of them may need more of your attention than others. And feel free in the chat to put which one needs your attention the most right now, why it needs your attention the most. And we're going to talk about that in the next slide. So take a few seconds. Feel free, if you want to talk about it, we can talk about it. You can put it in the chat, whatever your comfort level is. And so think about which dimension. Are you getting 8 hours of sleep? Are you usually feeling calm, patient, and content at work? Do you have regular time for reflection, planning, and creative thinking? So I have in the chat mind. Body. What is missing? What do you think is missing from those? What dimensions? Is it that you're not getting enough sleep? Are you not exercising? Emotions for me, especially increasing activities. Emotions. I get that completely. Emotions. A lot of emotions in the chat. And we'll talk about that later too, the cycle of emotions and things like that. Mind, body. This is great. So we're going to have a little discussion about these areas. Body, I need more exercise. So with those dimensions that you just mentioned, what are some factors contributing to how you're feeling? So what is missing? What is missing from those dimensions? What's contributing to those feelings?
And feel free to unmute yourself to share out loud.
I know for me, I'm just really missing, like so many of us, you know, weathering through a pandemic, just this connection to others, this opportunity to be with others, to do things with others, to engage in activities with others. Yeah. It's really missing. The relationships are missing.
Yes. Thank you, Rhoda. And that's a huge piece that they talk about as well. That relationship piece, building those connections, that helps cultivate resilience as well. And we can go with the other question too. What could you do today to tend to that dimension a little bit more? So what can you control? What can you do? That individual resilience part, what could you do?
Tala, I'll add from the chat box. Amy said that body was her area, and that she needed to do more exercise or exercise more.
I guess I can follow up with the number one. I guess I didn't realize I was missing friends, connections. I've lived here now 3 years, and I can't really say that I have a friend here. And it's been very relevant in the last like 2 or 3 weeks in my life that I need that type of connection. And that's why I put emotions down.
Thank you for sharing. I think that support system piece and having that social support circle is key and can be key. Thank you for sharing, Amanda. In the chat, we had body, I never get enough sleep. However, I started going to the gym again, and then somebody else put I need to exercise. Ms. Tangia, did you want to say something?
I said it would be nice if we could come up with a program for exercising. I think that would be awesome.
I love the way you're thinking, Ms. Tangia.
Yes.
That's an interesting thought, Tangia. I'll bring that up tomorrow.
Yes.
We have a meeting tomorrow. We'll mention that.
Well, we had a possible intern who wanted to do her internship around wellness and exercise and nutrition.
That'd be awesome.
That would be a wonderful start and beginning for something new.
Yes. I agree. I agree. We had a few things in the chat. Thank you, Ms. Tangia. We had emotions, not being able to be around people, family and friends because of COVID. Emotions, I don't have enough time to do what I really love to do or enjoy doing. Maybe just make some time, and prioritizing could help. Thank you all for sharing and being open with us. So now we have who we are. So what we start with. So that's everything that makes us who we are. So we think about our psyche, our values, our personality traits, our socio-political identity, our strengths and our aptitudes. So all these different pieces, and we'll go over them more in depth in a little bit, but all these pieces make up who you are. So it's important to take note and to take evaluation and reflect on how all these areas are impacting you and what you're bringing, your attitude you're bringing, and how it's impacting your resilience. And so we're going to show you a quick video. Brooke, we can stop it around like 2 minutes and 5 seconds. I think I had it. This is by Brene Brown. She's awesome. She talks about, she has a lot of videos out around knowing your worth, vulnerability. She is really an advocate for well-being, self-care, and resilience. So we're going to look at her video for a couple of minutes.
I've never achieved a single thing in my career or life comfortably. And those times when we stand alone, and those times when we go out on a limb, the times we walk away from what we know, our ideological bunkers and our beliefs, braving is the tool to help us manage the wilderness. Our worth and our belonging are not negotiated with other people. We carry those inside of our hearts. I know who I am. I'm clear about that. And I'm not going to negotiate that with you. Then I may fit in for you, but I no longer belong to myself. You know, Maya Angelou has been my most steadfast counselor for my entire life. I discovered her probably 30 years ago when I was in college. And I lean into her work. You know how when you find those people that just are unsparing and honest in their work, but they also bring you joy and comfort? She's that for me. And I love everything she does except for that quote. That quote has pissed me off for decades. And I never understood this idea that you're free when you belong nowhere. And as a social scientist, I know that belonging, I know this for sure. Like if you ask me the one thing I know for sure, 200,000 pieces of data. I know in the absence of love and belonging, there's always suffering. That I know for sure. So this quote from her about belonging everywhere, which is really nowhere, is what sets us free, was so troubling to me. But then I started digging in and I started trying to understand, what does it mean to belong? And I never thought of the concept of belonging. I thought belonging was like, we have a crew.
Like a posse or
Yeah,
a
we have
squad.
a posse, a squad.
Yeah.
And belonging is something you kind of negotiate with external groups of people. But it's not. What I found very quickly is the rest of that actual quote is part of an interview that she did, where she ended with Bill Moyers, where she ends up saying, you know, he ends up pushing a little bit on and saying, so are you saying that you belong nowhere and to no one? And she said, I belong to Maya. And what I found is that true belonging is a spiritual practice. And it's about the ability to find sacredness in both being a part of something, but also the courage to stand alone. And the people, for those of us who struggle to have the courage to stand alone, especially when we know that we're risking that sense of being.
So I wanted to share that video because she talks about this sense of belonging. And then she talks about how, you know, she just disagreed with the quote because she studies belonging. And so to hear someone say, you kind of have to belong nowhere is just saying that you can't change yourself or who you are for others. You have to find who you are first. And knowing who you are and standing in the strength of that will help you and allow you to cultivate this resilience and cultivate your group and your squad who accepts that. And so I thought that video was very relevant and to what we're discussing tonight.
I've never achieved a single thing in my career.
And so there's this, so one of the pieces is socio-political identities. And so with this, I kind of came up with this visual, we came up with this visual of how you're in the middle, you're personal. So think about your identity includes who you are, your personal values and things like that. But it also includes your family, your cultures that are passed down, your traditions, your way of being, your way of doing, things that have been instilled in you that you probably don't even recognize. So thinking about your family, your immediate, your extended and chosen. Also thinking about how groups, communities, and social networks have played a part in that as well. And then some social structures. So the education, laws and policies, that systemic financing, banking, employment, healthcare. So thinking about what goes into your identity, what are those multiple intersectional layers of influence on yourself? So SES, your socioeconomic status, your sexual orientation, your trauma history, all those pieces fit into who you are. And so think about how, and reflect on that, how these different pieces may influence that. And so now we have personality traits. So with your personality traits, you have, those are your unique patterned body of habits. Your traits, your attitudes, your thoughts, and your preferences. So our personalities are basically fixed as children. And so when you grow up and as a child, you kind of had the same attitude, you have the same personality. It doesn't really change on you as you get older. So understanding things that kind of make you tick, understanding that balance and getting to know yourself and your different personality characteristics can help cultivate that empathy and self-compassion for others.
Oh, what was that?
All right, sorry. Next, I'm gonna talk a little bit about genetics versus epigenetics. So many people are pretty familiar with the term genetics, you know, what your DNA, the pieces of you that were already determined. But not many people know about epigenetics. And so epigenetics it talks about being above the genes, the science of how environmental signals select, modify, and regulate gene activity, right? And it really talks about how your environment contributes to or can modify and change or affect your genes in order to create new outcomes, really is what it says. It reveals that our genes are constantly being remodeled in response to life experiences, right? So again, your environment, the people that you come in contact with, trauma, all of these things have the ability to kind of remodel or remold your genes and create new outcomes. Although we don't get to choose our genes, we may be able to influence how and if our genes are expressed by our lifestyle, right? Our choices, the choices that we make, and our thoughts. And they talk about how, you know, your thoughts really make a difference and can truly change your outcomes. These are just as important. These are just as important as our genes. And then, of course, as I stated kind of before, the genetic factors contributing significantly to resilient responses and trauma and stress.
And so
Sorry.
You're fine. Another piece of the puzzle that we talked about that makes up who you are your strengths and your aptitudes. You're okay.
Yo, my computer's doing something weird. I'm sorry.
And so think about what you did. What did you love doing as a child? And what have people always told you you're really good at? And what have you learned that came easily? And so thinking about that, think about how that translates into what you're doing now in the job and the career that you've chosen. Do some of those qualities that they discussed and talked to you about when you were younger, could you see how that has played a role or a factor in the job that you may have chosen? So think about those strengths. So you start with strengths, so self-knowledge, knowing what we can do and being clear about what we love to do. And so you're coming from this strengths-based approach. So you know your areas of growth, but you also celebrate and recognize your strengths. I think so often we harp on areas of growth or weaknesses without acknowledging that there's so many strengths that we have. And then also find a place, this is key, find a place where you might thrive. So identifying your aptitude boosts your resilience. So as you're becoming more aware, you might find that your current role is burning you out, and a different role where you can indirectly or directly work with children may be better. So just take into account, always reflecting on what's contributing to areas of where you're feeling burnt out or stressed, and then reevaluating some things. It's always okay to reevaluate how you can put yourself first.
Okay, can y'all hear me?
Yes.
All right, we're going to jump into the values and beliefs part. So we all have core values, but often we're not aware of what those are. This activity will help us to identify some of our core values, right? It's a useful one to do every year. And so it will help you to reflect on how they change or don't change. All right, so right here in front of you, you have a list of core values. All right, so we want you to take a moment to read through the list. And if you have a piece of paper near you, if you want to jot down a couple or just make notes somewhere, I want you to kind of identify your top 10 values. Okay, so we'll take about a minute just for you to kind of identify those top 10 values that will represent yourself. All right, so now that you have a couple of values identified, if it's okay if you don't have 10, try to narrow those down to maybe your top 5. Maybe cut that list in half if you can. And then once you've done that, try to cut that list in half once more. And see if you can identify your top 3 values. All right. So let's talk about this just a little bit, okay? So what do your core values mean? Wait, let me back up. Let me go back one slide, you guys. Oh no. Okay, first, is there anybody that would like to share their values? Feel free to unmute yourself and speak to the group, or add it in the chat box.
You want the top 3?
Yeah, yeah.
Family, faith, and making a difference.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah, I see a couple more.
This was challenging, Brooke. This was really challenging because it's hard to narrow it down. But I barely could read through all of them, but I did have compassion, gratitude, and spirituality.
That's good.
Thank you, Ms. Tammy. And you're right, it is very hard to narrow those down.
Yeah. We have some in the chat too, Brooke. Amanda put acceptance, equality, and family. We have faith, family, and health. Creativity, leadership, making a difference. Faith, family, and service. Faith, family, honesty. Faith, family, friendship. We had positive attitude, humor, making a difference. It's a lot of family, joy, forgiveness. Faith, forgiveness, family. So it's a lot of similarities there. Family, faith, and helping others.
A lot of great values there. You're right, a lot of family, a lot of faith, a lot of correlations there. Thank you all for sharing. I see them, they're still coming in the chat box. I see more family, faith. Yep.
Yep, family, faith, self. This is good.
Let's talk a little bit about these values. Get my screen to work.
Gratitude, fun, and travel. That was one of them.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit. What do your core values mean to you? And again, feel free to unmute yourself. This is a discussion. Just wanted to kind of talk a little bit about your values. You can, if you're not comfortable with speaking to the group, feel free to add to the chat box. But what do your core values mean to you? Why are they important? What role do they play in who you are as a person?
How I want to live my life.
Yeah.
That's it.
You said you want to live your life, Miss Jessica? Is that what you said?
I said that is how I want to live my life.
That is how you want to live your life.
Having fun, traveling, and being grateful for what I have.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And some of mine were, hello everybody, this is Shanita. But mine was most definitely family. Family is everything to me. Without family support in my life, I think I would probably be lost, you know. Of course, on the spiritual side, we all say that God comes first in our life, and which he does for me, spiritually wise, you know. But my family means so much to me. Then I'm a fun person to be around because I'm fun. People used to call me a social butterfly, which I'm still a social butterfly. And I'm a good support system to my friends, you know. I do teamwork. I'm a team player at work, you know. I'll keep your deepest dark secret. I'm trustworthy, you know. I'm reliable. I'm loyalty, you know. So all those great adjectives describes me, and it's just truth, and that's my life.
Well, thank you for sharing, Miss Shanita. Yes, I love it. I love it.
With conviction.
Yes.
With conviction.
Yes, we can tell that you live that.
My top value was
The
gratitude.
good news is that
And it sort of shifted as we did from top 10 to top 5 to top 3. Gratitude sort of rose to the top because I do try to stay in this place and I do try to embody this spirit of being grateful. I even have things around the house to remind me. Like I'm looking at a plaque that I have that says, start each day with a grateful heart. So I try to sort of rest in this place and this being of being grateful.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you. We had some things in the chat, Brooke. They influence the choices and decisions I make. My core values show who I am as a person. And then Rhoda's put gratitude anchors my being.
Absolutely. Yes, thank you, thank you, thank you. I wanted to ask another question. Through the elimination process, Rhoda, she kind of hit on this just a bit. When you went through having to choose your top 3, which ones were some of the ones that kind of you were able to cross off really quickly?
Yeah. Well, this is sort of surprise. Justice. Justice was one of my top 10, but justice didn't make it to my top 3. So top 10 originally were like justice and fairness, but they didn't end up in my top 3.
Thank you, Rose. I think Brooke froze.
Oh yeah.
I see her froze. So I wonder, and I don't know if I have the.
Look, and she froze with a serious look on her face.
And I don't think I have the share. Jeez. There it goes. She had to come back in. So you said you had marked off justice, right?
Yeah, justice.
Surprisingly.
Justice surprisingly was at the top in the top 10, but it did not make it did not make the top 3. It was more gratitude, religion,
gratitude. And I have a question too. So thinking about how those values may have changed over time. Did anybody notice that their values maybe at one time was different, but now it's totally changed? We talked about that as well in our book study session. Somebody put in the chat, my core values are what I work for and what I believe in, the most important things for me. Rick is trying to log back in. We'll see if we can keep it going. So
I think for me, I kept the 3 that I did because it's what I felt I wanted to project, but what I also want for everybody else to feel in their life.
Ooh, that's good. That's a good one. Thank you for sharing. And so we'll just keep going. Brooke will hop back on. I don't have the share button, but the next part of the circle, the resilience pie, was what we are, where we are. And so thinking about that context piece. So context matters. even though we have limited ability to change or impact it. And so thinking about how we have limited ability, but thinking about how you may see one piece of the puzzle or may see one aspect of a person, but somebody else may be seeing something totally different. And so thinking about how that context piece matters. So thinking about your stages of life and the phase of career you're in, thinking about your socio-political, cultural, and economic context, your circumstances and your situations, all those play a part into where you are in the context of it all. And so in thinking about your those different pieces, your circumstances and your situation, so whether you are parents or caring for young children, or if you're living far from home, thinking about the professional context as well, so the nature of and challenges that you may have in your programs, your classrooms, and in the organizations in which you work. When that socio-political, cultural, and economic context, so think about how those deeply influence your beliefs and your ways of thinking. So that may be your program's funding, pay, thinking about the policies within your program, and then thinking about those shifting demographics. And lastly, that stage of life and your phase of your career. So at different stages, we may deal with different factors. So you may have new teachers who are just learning the ropes of things, and then you have more experienced teachers. Or you may have those taking care of parents versus those raising young children. So just looking at the whole picture in the context of maybe what people are going through and what you may be going through, and reflecting and recognizing that. And so then we have how we are, and I'm going to give her a second to see if she pops back on. I know she was having some internet problems. There you go.
I'm sorry, y'all. My internet disconnected me and said reconnect, and so I apologize for that. Tyler, do you want me to share my slides again? I wasn't sure if you were presenting.
Yeah, and we're at how we are. So I went ahead and went over context right here.
Okay, I'll click back in really fast. I'm so sorry. Technology. Okay, here we go. So we're at how we are.
Yes, so the
Right on in there. I was worried about that, dude.
this piece, yes.
Right on up in there. Do it the right thing. Thank you, Lord. So, there we go.
It is so hard to move things around on this screen. Can't see anybody. Okay. Okay. Is this me, Tyler? Am I jumping in?
Yes. And I can do, so this is how we are, the dispositions of resilient educators. And so we're just going to show you this slide, but go into more depth later of how this connects to kind of the habits you'll build. But you have purposefulness, acceptance, optimism. So these dispositions it's important to know that dispositions are not fixed. Like your personality traits, they're fixed, but your dispositions aren't. They're behaviors that you could learn, things that you can learn. So when you're thinking about later, we'll talk about how habits connect to dispositions. Habits are your behaviors, but dispositions are what created by those habits. And so you have empathy, humor, positive self-perception, empowerment, perspective, curiosity, courage, perseverance, and trust. And we'll show you later how those habits and dispositions connect.
Okay, so thank you, Tyler. No, go back. Okay, so we're going to talk through this cycle of emotion. Y'all, I'm sorry, my computer is really giving me a hard time. Tyler. if I stop sharing, can you share your screen, your slides? It's really, my computer is acting
just
up
give
on
me sharing privileges.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. That way.
It would be so much easier. It's freezing up on me. Okay. Okay. I think you should have it now.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Oh, got that slideshow. Okay, there you go.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So helpful. Okay, so we're going to talk through the cycle of an emotion. And so the resources that we are talking about, the author, she talks about how, we go through this complete cycle whenever we experience an emotion. So it starts with the prompting event. So whatever happens that kind of stimulates the emotion. Then from there, you move on to interpretation. From there, you move on to a physical response. And then from there, you move on to the urge to act, and then action, and then the after effects. And so I want you to keep this whole cycle in mind, and we're going to do an activity, okay? And so on the next slide, you're going to see a video, and you're going to see a video of a teacher in a classroom setting, an early childhood teacher in a classroom setting, and you're going to see multiple challenging behaviors. Okay, so you're going to see multiple things happening at once. And what I would like for you to do as you're watching the video, if you could either jot down or just take note of some things that you observe, paying close attention to children exhibiting challenging behaviors because there are multiple happening, and the response of the children surrounding the child. Also pay attention to the teachers and what happens before the challenging behavior and then after the challenging behavior. Okay, so I want you to pay attention to everything that's going on and just jot down a couple of notes, and we'll talk about it in just a moment.
Let me know if you can hear too.
Look, I bring you a ladder. Wow, that's a trap. No, it's not a trap. It's called a ladder.
Oh, I feel like you're always not.
No, they are not hats. They're good.
Shelby, put the dinosaur on.
I'm going to jump in.
Shelby Lauren, will you like your bed? Sit on your bottom, on your bottom, on your bottom, on your bottom. Do you want to sit in the center? There's your name. Sit and I'll come to you. No. Bye-bye, dinosaur. I'll put him in blocks by your teeth. Let's go. Let's go. I'm going to put it. Do not hit me. I'll put him in blocks. Where would you like to go?
Okay, so there was a lot going on in that video.
Who
A lot of
left?
different things happening, right?
I'm fine.
Sorry,
No, you're fine. You're fine. All right. So yeah, you can go to the next slide. Thank you. So we're I don't think we're gonna. Let me see what our time is. We have quite a few participants, and so the way that we originally did this or plan to do this is to put you guys in breakout rooms so that you can have a conversation about what you saw and then bring that back to the full group. And Nicole, we have quite a few participants. Do you think it would be worth trying to do this as a breakout group activity? I think we can manage that. It'll be quite a few.
I think you can if you want to. Do you already have them set up, or you could just hit the random? I mean, random would probably work. There's 38 participant. Well, no, it's 38, 39, 44. I've got like 42 participants plus equipped staff.
Okay.
And then, you know,
let's try the random. I think we can try that and maybe spend just a few minutes in small groups chatting with each other about what you saw. But before you go, I want you to keep in mind these questions or these guidelines. So discuss your observations with your group, right? So you can choose. There were many different little issues going on, challenges going on. So you can choose a child or a couple of children with the teacher, you can choose. And then I want you to try to identify the core emotions that you saw in the video, right? So see if you can walk through that cycle. And I want you to bring those pieces back to the full group so we can kind of talk about it. Does that make sense? You're going to walk through that cycle of an emotion. See if you can kind of identify some of the core emotions that you saw and then bring it back to the full group. And Tyler, we have the core emotions list, right? On the next slide.
I think so, but I don't know if they're able to see it while they're in breakout rooms. They won't be able to see it.
I think we can display the slides in the breakout room.
Do you have the, can you go ahead and do the breakout rooms?
Okay, so let's just scratch that because that will be, I get what you're saying. If you'll just in your groups talk through what you observed and the cycle of an emotion, see if you can kind of pinpoint the cycle of emotion depending on the group of children that you are observing, and then bring that back to the full group so that we can talk about it. Let's do that. And so, let's see. We're gonna do the groups. Let's see.
You know those.
Okay, so you should be set and ready to go into your group.
so we just need to, when it pops up, we just click on join.
Yeah.
And then you'll pull us back out when it's time to go. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So everybody click on your blue join button.
Thank you for explaining that, Nicole. Okay, so we have everybody in a group. Many people in a group. If you're having any issue, if you didn't receive the notification, let me know. And I can try to manually. Thank you, Tyler. Thank you for doing that.
You want my bad phone? Shit.
Right, and then I don't know, maybe it's just me, but then I saw a little child in the high chair, looked like he was asleep. And I didn't think nobody was supposed to be, a child supposed to be sleeping in a high chair. So I noticed that. So yeah, and I'm like, oh, they don't like going in the class.
Okay, check my other stuff. Okay, I'm not in this breakout room.
And then I was talking about what we saw.
Okay, Miss Maria. Thank you for taking that piece, Tyler. I appreciate it. Yes, ma'am.
This meeting is being recorded.
Sorry, y'all. I had to push record.
Was I not mistaken, then the one of them, when they were sitting at the table, when she was bringing the child back to sit down, the other little boy sitting next to it started kicking the other kid.
Oh, no.
So I think they were kind of feeding off of his behavior.
Absolutely. I think you're right. And we see that a lot in the classroom setting, right? We see how, the behaviors and emotions of one child can trigger the entire class. Yes. Yes. Tyler, would you mind going back to the cycle of an emotion graphic? Thank you. Thank you. Was someone getting ready to share something?
Yeah, I had made a comment that
She been this motherfucker's coming again. The motherfucker coming a fucking again. Where the fuck that shit coming from, man?
Angela, I think there you go.
Okay,
You
I
muted
said-
yourself there for a second,
I'm
Angela.
sorry. I made a comment that the new group that I see that's coming up, there can be 16 behaviors going on at one time in the classroom. It's something I've never seen before in my life. There are 16 different behaviors going on at the same time. And I asked my group, what should I do? And Alexis came up with a really great thing that she says she does with her 3-year-olds. I can try it with 2-year-olds, that they do, everybody freeze. So it stops everything in the classroom and everybody regroups at a time. Because there are 2 teachers in my classroom, but the other teacher has not quite gotten her foothold into what we're doing yet. She's really young and she's really good with the children, but as far as changing those behaviors, she doesn't know how to do that yet. So with 16 2-year-olds, you have to have a plan. So Alexis gave me a plan that I think I'm going to try something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, because all of them are emotional. I work in a setting where it's a very high stress place for parents. So I'm feeling all the stress from the children that they're getting from the parents too. So it's very, very challenging every day.
Goodness gracious.
Yeah.
Well,
very challenging.
We appreciate you showing up every day and continuing to press on with that challenge.
Thank you.
And I could imagine how challenging or stressful it could be being in that environment with, children that are that young, experiencing that much emotion altogether. I'm sure that could be very, very challenging. And I'm glad that you were able to talk through, you know, some strategies in order to help with that, Miss Angela.
That's awesome.
Thank you for sharing. Anybody else want to share anything before we keep moving? Okay, we can keep going, Ms. Tyler. Really quick, were there anything in the chat box? I thought I saw.
There were a few things, there were conversations back and forth we had. I put stuff in the chat too.
Okay, all right, thank you.
I think we can just go. So what we do, addressing your habits, we'll go over this real quickly because the important part is your self-care. How can you do this? So 12 habits of resilient educators. So knowing yourself, understanding your emotions, telling those empowering stories. So how are you interpreting and making sense of events? Building that community, being here, being present now. Taking care of yourself, self-care, which we'll talk about in a second. Focus on the bright spots, cultivating your compassion, being a learner, play and create. We oftentimes don't hear that as adults, but we do need to play and create. The next one is riding the waves of change. So knowing that change is going to come and expecting that so that when it does happen, it doesn't throw you off, but you're able to be resilient in that moment. And then celebrating and appreciating. And so with the 12 habits, like I said before, the habits are your behaviors. The dispositions are what can be created because of the habits that you have in place and that you're practicing daily. So knowing yourself gives you a sense of purposefulness. Knowing your emotions allows you to be empowered. And so thinking about how habits intentionally, if you're intentional about your habits, they help you create these dispositions of resiliency. And so we're going to talk a little bit briefly about self-care. So just knowing that you're worth it, you do you, and you've got this. And so with culturally responsive self-care is a culturally informed concept, and that authentic self-care practices are different for each individual. They're dynamic in nature, and they may change over time and differ as a function of your interest, your family, your cultural background, your geography. So just knowing that all these factors go into your self-care, and that whatever you do for self-care can be just for you. It doesn't mean that you have to do what somebody else is doing or practice what somebody. Do what works for you and what restores you and gives you those, help you build that resilience. And Brooke is just going to go over a few self-care strategies that you can practice.
Thank you, Tala. And so, yes, making sure that when you're thinking about creating strategies or selecting strategies to practice self-care, keeping in mind that, you know, you want to choose things that are specific to you, that are individualized to what you need in order to be your best version of yourself. So here are just some general ideas of things that you can do. Practicing mindfulness and gratitude, right? Making sure that you are being present and in the moment as much as possible. Mindfulness, there are so many different mindfulness activities out there, meditations, different activities that help you to practice being in the moment and being present where you are. In the classroom setting, that might mean, you know, as you're walking in the door, as much as possible, we know that everybody's situations are different, but trying your best to be present and in the moment with the children. When the children are doing activities with the children. When the children are eating lunch, if you're able to do that, practice self-care and eat lunch with them, and making sure that you're, you know, eating healthy foods with them. When they're outside on the playground, exercising with them as much as possible. Making sure that you are just being in the moment with them as much as possible, and also doing it when you're not in the classroom setting or in the program setting, when you're on your own time. Practicing affirmations, positive affirmations. And so I tell this story about when I was an NC pre-K teacher. I had a little boy who, he was a 4-year-old little boy, And every morning he would come in and he would recite these affirmations to me and to his friends in his classroom. And I finally, asked him, like, where did you learn that? Where are you getting this from? And he told me, he said, me and my mommy say affirmations every morning. And he had like a list of 10 on the way to school in the car. And it was amazing to hear all of these positive statements come out of his mouth. And he was then passing those along to his friends by sharing them with them. And so I thought, wow, this is an amazing way to manifest positive energy in someone as young as a 4-year-old. And so that's something that you might try. And there are many different ways to get positive affirmations. There are books, there are free online resources, the list goes on and on. Reflecting. So we don't do this, I feel, as early childhood educators enough. Just reflecting on, everything, reflecting on your experiences, reflecting on your day, and you may do this individually if it's something that you value. But as a whole, I think, it's just something that we could be more intentional about, reflecting on our practices, reflecting on everything, because we know that growth comes from reflecting, and kind of identifying areas where we want to grow and where we want to build more. And so, and reflection is just a vital tool, or it could be about a great strategy for practicing self-care. Setting boundaries. It is okay to say no. Yes. And the world that we live in has
exactly
kind of made that super difficult for us to do. But saying no and setting hard boundaries is okay. It's actually encouraged. That when you know that you have had enough, or that it is beyond your limit, setting hard boundaries helps to promote wellness within yourself, but it also helps to let other people know how far to go, right? And so that's one that I encourage everyone to use as much as possible. Prioritizing. Whew. Prioritizing is an awesome strategy that we can all use to help with self-care. And so I know for myself, it's super hard for me to prioritize, because in my head, everything is important. Everything has the same value in my head, but that's not helpful, because then I become overwhelmed at everything that needs to be done. And so, being intentional about making lists of, what's the most important thing that needs to be done now, and can I go ahead and knock that out, and what things can wait till later. I believe that will definitely help you to be more intentional about practicing self-care. Purposeful planning. So, as you're planning, whatever it might be, an event or activities or whatever, just making sure that you are making sure that it's purposeful, making sure that you're intentional about what you're choosing, and using that as a strategy as well. I think it might be, practicing stillness is very similar to practicing being present and mindfulness. It's just this concept of being in the moment where you are, planting yourself in that space, and being present in that space. And then responding versus reacting, knowing the difference between the two and what each one looks like, and which situations call for which. When do you need to respond, and when do you need to react? What does that look like? Are there any other self-care strategies that you all are practicing, or that are special to you, or things that help you to practice wellness? And feel free to check that.
Ms. Brooks, I'm sorry. This is Tammy Gilchrist.
Hey, Ms. Tammy.
Someone has shared this book with me called Self-Care Journal. And in this journal, it has awesome stuff in it. And I was just listening to what you were sharing with us. And this one section of the book is about eight ways to help yourself to take care of yourself. And as teachers, we need to get up earlier, plan ahead, give ourselves some great time.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, you did say no. It's okay to say no. And edit yourself, do an edit list of things to do, declutter, declutter that desk, that classroom, to make yourself feel self-care and think positive. I like that one. And just be kind to yourself. And then it gives a little section in the book where you can list things that's worth celebrating that you've done for yourself.
Yes.
This is an awesome book. It's called Breathe. It's a self-care journal. I've read it, but I'm going to read it again because, like I said, I read it, but I didn't really read it to help myself. So I just wanted to share that with you guys.
Thank you so much, Miss
Thank
Candy.
you.
Yes, that is awesome. That all of that is awesome. Thank you so much. Anybody else have any other? Uh-oh. I'm sorry.
No, I was just saying you're welcome.
Thank you. Anybody else have any other resources or practices or strategies that they use? That they want to share to help us practice wellness and self-care?
Let's go, man.
Well, sometimes I like to wind down with music, you know, to get myself, you know, relaxed and stuff.
Yes, ma'am, Miss Shanita. What's your favorite kind of music? What kind of music helps you do that?
I like that old school music, but you know what? When I'm ready to relax, I'm a big jazz person as well. You know, I'm a big fan of George Benson, and I love Mesa, you know, and I love Stanley Clark and little stuff like that. I love stuff like that, but I like jazz. But when I want to just let you know how we tell our kids to let the sillies out. I put on that old school so I can move and do them old school dances. But when I want to relax, I'll put on that jazz and kick my feet up, if you know what I'm saying.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. That's it right there. Thank you so much.
And I think we should also have a plant. I love plants and flowers. That helps me out a lot too, guys.
I take really long baths. That's my way. I can disconnect. I can play some music if I want to. I can, you know, I fall asleep. I mean, I can like let it all go. I can feel better. Sometimes it'll be like, I can decide, all right, I'm done. I can go to bed, or no, I'm feeling better. I want to participate now in this with my husband or my son, you know, that type of stuff. So.
Awesome. Thank you, Miss Amanda. That's one of my favorite ways to practice self-care as well. Yes, ma'am. All right. Any other?
It's also good to find stuff that you enjoy, that you laugh, that makes you laugh. Like me, I like Sanford and Son and Good Time. I can put those shows on and laugh at the same episodes over and over and over again. And my husband says, "Don't tell me you're watching Good Times again." And I'm like, "Yeah."
Ain't nothing wrong with that, Miss Shanita. Nothing wrong with that at all.
We grew up on those shows. I still watch them too, Miss Shanita. I still watch them too, baby. I love me some Esther.
Yeah.
I actually like to cook for self-care. I like to cook, you know, different stuff and dabble in unique cooking for self-care. So that's something I like to cook for myself and my husband and my daughter. And so to me, that's self-care.
Yes,
absolutely.
It is.
Ultimate form.
Thank you for sharing. Well, we hope that, you know, if you don't have some strategies, that you start thinking about some things that you can pull when you need them.
Yeah.
You know, it's one thing to do things in the moment, but it's another thing to prep for that. So if you can start to, you know, in your free time, just jot down some strategies that either you heard tonight, or, you know, maybe do a little bit of research and pull some things that are specific to you that you can use when you need them.
Yeah.
We have a couple more things to share with you guys, and then we're going to wrap up with the evaluation and we'll be done. I know we're running a little bit over our time.
Sure.
So we're gonna just talk about implications for leaders and just highlight a few because we know there are a few leaders here. All of us are leaders, but we know some admin are in here too. And so thinking about what you can do, and so just highlighting a few, clarify your own thoughts and beliefs about your emotions. You can't lead what you aren't clear on yourself. Make sure you are modeling balance, self-care, and highlighting self-care and recognizing those who live a balanced life. Organizations thrive when they have clear shared values and where practice aligns to those values. So programs need articulated values. Start now, today. Add time for mindfulness to your calendar this week. Realizing too, you don't necessarily need to do this alone. Seek out colleagues who are committed to telling empowering narratives or find a leadership coach. So those are a few on that one. And then just a few more. Model being a learner. Share your learning practices and let your staff see you learning. When working with new teachers, be intentional about building self-efficacy, their personal beliefs of how capable they are of coping effectively and realistically with a specific task. And just be mindful of the subtle difference between appreciation and praise. And so these are some of the resources that we had and that we used to cultivate this presentation. Like we said, we did the book study with the Onward book, as well as participants had the Onward workbook. So they had activities to go along. Those are great books. Brooke has read and came up with different stuff out with practicing presence and everyday self-care for educators. And then also, we also put some information in there about the culturally responsive self-care practices for early childhood educators.
Yes, thank you, Charlie. And if you want more information on specific strategies to help you practice self-care, the Practicing Presence resource is awesome. It breaks down it gives you many different strategies to choose from. And there are many other websites and resources out there. Pinterest is one of my favorite resources. You can literally type in self-care strategies and you will get many different options that will pop up. And if you need any other ideas, feel free to reach out to me directly or Tala directly, and we're more than happy to point you in the right direction.